Didn't know as he was out with friends celebrating his birthday that he was being watched, that he was being followed. He was being stalked and observed while he was celebrating.
They're not painting her as some clueless girl who got caught up in something by accident. Not even close. Prosecutors are describing her as a major part of the setup behind the shocking incident involving Jacksonville rapper Julio Foolio. It's intense to hear. They claim she wasn't just nearby, she allegedly helped plan, track, and coordinate what turned into a deadly trap on a night that was supposed to be a birthday celebration. On the surface, it looked like a regular weekend trip, but behind the scenes, it was something way more organized. Court files show her activity dating back to June 21st, 2024, when messages revealed her talking about booking an Airbnb in Tampa for the next day. That move, investigators say, marked the start of a carefully planned operation carried out by a close-knit group. Officials list her alongside her boyfriend, Isaiah Chance, plus Sean Gathright and brothers Richard and Davian Murphy. People who, according to reports, work together with extreme precision. Then comes the part that stunned everyone. The car coordination. Evidence shows 2 vehicles were involved, a black Chevy Impala, registered to Gathright's mother, allegedly used by the main group, and a rented silver Chevy Cruze secured by Rashad Murphy, meant to stay off the radar while watching the scene. Each piece of this puzzle paints a picture of planning so detailed that even investigators were left speechless. This 2-car setup sounds straight out of a high-stakes movie. The kind of coordination you'd expect from trained professionals, not regular people just hanging out. Prosecutors are saying the way it was all organized shows planning, precision, and purpose, not coincidence. Things get even more serious once investigators reach what they call the tracking phase, the point where Andrew's role, according to them, becomes too direct to ignore. Julio Foolio had publicly shared his birthday plans on Instagram, including a pool party, a night out at Club Teasers on North Nebraska Avenue, and then an after party at Truth 18 on East Bush Boulevard around 1:40 a.m. on June 23rd. What should have been a night of celebration turned into something way darker. Security footage reportedly shows Andrews, Chance, and Davian Murphy leaving the Airbnb in the Silver Cruze. They stopped by a McDonald's at 225 East Fletcher Avenue to grab food before heading out. Casual moves that now look way more suspicious under the investigation's spotlight. Prosecutors say Andrews and Chance were wearing masks and hoodies, blending in like anyone else enjoying the night, but in reality, they were allegedly watching, waiting, and keeping eyes on the scene. Cameras placed them near Club Teasers around 2:21 a.m., parked quietly at the north end of the lot, then later near Truth 18 around 3:11 a.m. They're accused of posing as a couple, blending into the nightlife crowd while passing information back to their team. And here's the part that left everyone stunned: the timing. The Impala, said to be carrying the main group, reportedly pulled into Teasers right as Julio Foolio stepped out at 2:47 a.m., entering from the north side to avoid being noticed. The coordination was so sharp it almost didn't seem real. This wasn't luck, and it definitely wasn't random. It was planned down to the minute. Investigators say every move was part of a tight communication loop, with lookouts keeping constant eyes on Julio Foolio's every step. Surveillance footage from 3 different club parking lots tracks the group's movements with shocking detail, creating a digital timeline that prosecutors call undeniable. Phone records back it all up too. Data from cell towers reportedly shows Andrew's phone pinging near every location: the clubs, the McDonald's, and then the most crucial spot near the Home 2 Suites by Hilton on Kinley Drive around 4:40 a.m. That signal, investigators say, places her right near the scene just moments before the attack happened. Then comes the hotel footage, a mix of street cams, Tesla Sentry Mode video, and building security feeds, all pieced together into what prosecutors describe as a video map of the event. Every second is documented, from the arrivals to the final moments before everything erupted. Around 4:30 a.m., Foolio and his crew pulled into the Home 2 Suites parking lot in 3 separate cars after trying to check in somewhere else. He was sitting in the passenger seat of a Dodge Charger, driven by Xavier Edwards, completely relaxed, legs up on the dash, no clue what was about to unfold. Moments later, Andrew's car slowly entered the lot, making a careful U-turn that passed just a few feet from a black Impala parked in the shadows. That move, investigators believe, was the final confirmation that set everything in motion. Then the chilling chilling part, 3 men, identified by prosecutors as Sean Gathright and Davian Murphy, both armed with long rifles, and Rashard Murphy, allegedly carrying a modified handgun, stepped out dressed in all black from head to toe. They moved with quiet precision, spreading out like they knew exactly what to do. In seconds, chaos erupted. Over 50 shots fired in what investigators called a tightly coordinated strike. Inside the car, Foolio reportedly jerked upright, startled and scrambling to move as glass shattered around him. It was a terrifying and heartbreaking scene that left the entire parking lot in shock. The shots reached him before he even had time to react. One struck his chest, injuring vital organs instantly, while 2 more hit his back, causing fatal wounds. Julio Foolio passed away right there without a moment to escape or understand what was happening. 3 others were hurt in the chaos. The driver, Xavier Edwards, was hit in the upper right arm, while Gino Norris took a shot to his arm too. Even a bystander, Kimia Bentley, sitting in a nearby Nissan, was struck in her upper arm. The gunfire tore through hotel windows, leaving guests and students from the University of South Florida orientation terrified. Tourists ducked for cover, hearing what prosecutors later described as an organized, targeted attack. It was a scene of complete panic that no one saw coming. Investigators later said no rifle casings were left behind because the shooters used special equipment to catch them, but 31 shell casings from a handgun were found nearby. Photos from the impounded Dodge Charger showed dozens of bullet holes across the vehicle, each one carefully tagged by investigators, a chilling reminder of how intense that moment was. But the evidence that prosecutors found most revealing didn't come from the scene itself. It came after. Surveillance and ring camera footage from the Airbnb allegedly showed the group returning later that night, unloading items from the car, moving calmly, and talking like nothing serious had just happened. Investigators say their composure made it clear they believed they had pulled off their plan without being caught. Afterward, the group reportedly took an Uber back to Jacksonville, where surveillance cameras later captured them arriving at Gathwright's home. When investigators finally questioned Andrews, she denied everything at first, claiming she had no part in what happened. But as evidence piled up, her story began to crumble fast. Under pressure, Andrews eventually admitted she was present in all the key locations shown on video: Club Teasers, Truth 18, and the Home 2 Suites parking lot. She also confirmed that Chance had been driving the silver Chevy Cruze used to follow Julio Foolio that night, and that she had allowed him to use her phone to message Sean Gathright. Her explanation? She claimed they were only asking about entry fees for parties, and that they ended up at the hotel lot by mistake after getting lost. But investigators weren't buying it. Her version of events didn't match up with what cameras and phone records clearly showed. When someone lies about things that can be easily proven wrong, it makes you wonder, what else are they hiding? The evidence stacked against Andrews was massive. Coordinated messages showing planning, cars tracked through license plate readers, cell tower pings placing her phone at every major scene, and surveillance of her moving around during critical moments. Add in her own statements, her confirmed presence at multiple key spots, and what prosecutors describe as attempts to destroy evidence afterward. It painted a picture investigators called impossible to ignore. Prosecutors built a case so tight there was barely any room left for doubt. They used cutting-edge tech and detailed detective work to form what they called an airtight picture of planning and violence. If convicted as charged, Andrews faces a mandatory life sentence. And based on the evidence, the odds were heavily stacked against her. Still, even with all the pressure, her defense team didn't back down. They made one final push to change the story, turning her image from a willing accomplice into a woman blinded by emotion and manipulated by someone she trusted. Witnesses and defense arguments worked to paint her as vulnerable, saying she was under control, not in control. It was a desperate strategy, but it was all they had left. Prosecutors kept stacking their evidence, each video, each message, every phone ping, all pointing to Andrews being involved. The defense had an uphill battle from the start. How do you create doubt when your client appears in several surveillance clips, gets tracked by cell tower data, and even admits to being at the scene? According to her attorney, Lyle Malcolm, the answer was to reshape the entire narrative. In his 30-minute opening statement, he described Alicia as a young, impressionable woman caught up in the chaos of an abusive, controlling boyfriend. He told the jury, Alicia Andrews did not know any of those men in that group, and none of those men in that group knew Alicia Andrews. It was a bold attempt to flip the story, from a planned operation to a case of manipulation and misplaced trust. According to her attorney, Alicia Andrews had no idea about any kind of violent plan and no ties to gang activity at all. Malcolm's version of the story painted her as someone who thought the Tampa trip was just a short weekend getaway, a chance to reconnect with her on and off boyfriend, Isaiah Chance. The The defense claims she never suspected anything dark was going on that weekend. To back that up, Malcolm pointed to the complete lack of forensic evidence connecting her to the weapons or any direct act of violence. No fingerprints, no DNA, nothing linking her to the rifles or the modified handgun investigators later recovered. He used that absence to argue that she wasn't involved in any coordinated plan or physical attack. Malcolm also drew a clear contrast between Andrews and the others accused. While the main suspects were covered head to toe in black gear meant for concealment, Andrews was out in plain sight. No mask, no gloves, no signs of tactical intent. He said that difference proves she wasn't part of any lookout or surveillance role, no matter what prosecutors suggested through cell tower data or video clips. Then Malcolm shifted focus, going after the investigation itself. He called it sloppy, claiming it was led by people lacking proper experience and attention to detail. He said mistakes and tunnel vision had turned a confused young woman into a convenient target for blame. Malcolm pointed out that the lead detective on the case had only 4 months of homicide experience, and that this was actually his first time leading an investigation of this scale. He argued that Andrews' early lies to police weren't signs of guilt, but the reaction of someone scared and overwhelmed, a young woman panicking in a situation she couldn't process. The heart of his defense centered on Andrews' relationship with Isaiah Chance, described as toxic, controlling, and emotionally damaging. Even though the judge blocked formal evidence of domestic abuse, Malcolm carefully wove that theme into his story, portraying Alicia as someone trapped and manipulated rather than knowingly part of any violent plan. He painted their relationship as messy and unpredictable, suggesting that Alicia went to Tampa not to cause harm, but out of hope, trying to fix a broken relationship with someone who ultimately dragged her into disaster. Co-defense attorney Jeremy McLeon echoed that same sentiment, emphasizing that Andrews had cooperated with investigators from the very start. That, he said, showed she wasn't blindly loyal to Chance or anyone else involved. But even with all the emotional framing and strategic storytelling, the defense couldn't fully soften what came next: the impact of the witness testimonies. When the people who survived and saw the aftermath took the stand, the courtroom fell silent. Their voices carried the weight of that morning, the chaos, the loss, and the shock that still hung in the air long after it ended. Each account reminded everyone how deeply that night changed lives forever. The prosecution's first day in court was packed with witnesses, each one tightening the story prosecutors called a perfectly coordinated setup. The very first witness, whose name was kept secret by court order, had been at Julio Foolio's birthday celebration and helped the jury connect the timeline from start to finish. They described being at the Airbnb party that police later shut down, then tagging along as the group headed out to the clubs for the night. According to this witness, Julio never got into any arguments or drama that evening. Supporting prosecutors claimed that this wasn't some random clash. It was a planned attack carried out with precision. After the clubs closed, everyone decided to rest at the home 2 suites, a decision that turned out to be fatal. The witness said they stepped inside the hotel to use the restroom, and seconds after coming back out, they heard a loud burst of gunfire that lasted nearly half a minute. One haunting detail hit everyone in the room. The witness revealed that their own boyfriend had been killed years earlier in 2018 during the same long-running Jacksonville street conflict that later took Julio's life. It showed just how deep and tragic that cycle of violence had become. Still, the witness insisted they weren't part of any crew, had no ties to Julio's 6-block circle, and had never even met Alicia Andrews before that night. But the emotion in the courtroom hit its highest point when Van DiGino Norris, Julio's cousin and close friend, took the stand. A U.S. Postal Service worker and lifelong Jacksonville resident, Norris spoke softly but firmly, describing how he'd known Julio for nearly 10 years. Their connection, he said, wasn't just friendship, it was family. Norris said he joined the birthday trip from Jacksonville to Tampa, riding with Julio Foolio in his black Dodge Charger and tagging along to the pool party and both club stops before everything took a tragic turn. What he described next had the whole courtroom frozen in silence. He testified that he was half asleep in the back seat when a loud, sharp noise jolted him awake. At first, he thought they'd been in a crash, but when he looked up, he saw Foolio slumped in the front seat, unresponsive, and Xavier Edwards covered in blood, panicking and shouting for help. Edwards yelled for him to run, fearing the shooters were still nearby. Both men bolted out of the car, sprinting toward the hotel lobby, banging on doors and pleading for someone to let them in. But terrified guests stayed silent, too scared to move. During cross-examination, Norris made it clear he had never seen or heard of Alicia Andrews before that night. He said he had zero interaction with her, but prosecutors used his testimony to strengthen their claim that Andrews wasn't a bystander but an outsider placed close enough to watch and report movements without drawing suspicion. That moment drew a bold line between the two competing stories, the prosecution's version of a coordinated plan versus the defense's image of innocence. The defense described Alicia as a kind-hearted, educated young woman with everything to lose, a substitute teacher, college-bound, who only wanted to fix her rocky relationship with a volatile boyfriend. They portrayed her as hopeful, naive, and caught in something she never meant to be part of. But that soft narrative clashed hard with the mountain of digital proof. Security footage, phone data, plate reader logs, witness statements, and even her own admissions, all showing her right there at every key place and every critical moment. She wasn't just close by, she was right in the middle of it all. Investigators say Alicia was coordinating through her phone, checking the clubs, circling the hotel, then rushing back to Jacksonville right after the attack, trying to hide evidence and lying to investigators about her role. But beyond the shocking courtroom scenes lies something even darker. The story of Foolio's death runs deeper than anyone imagined. Behind every name on the defendants list sits a much bigger network built on loyalty, revenge, and silence. And right in the center of that web is one name that dominates Jacksonville's rap scene, Yungeen Ace. As arrests mounted and evidence grew, more and more details began pointing in his direction. What started as a single violent act in a Tampa hotel parking lot exploded into one of Florida's largest, most complex multi-agency investigations ever. The case pulled in everyone. The Tampa Police Department, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, U.S. Marshals, FBI, and multiple state and local task forces. What seemed like a localized feud quickly turned into a full-scale operation, stretching across state lines, revealing deep gang ties, coded messages, and hidden connections all orbiting around one of Jacksonville's biggest rap figures. Detectives moved fast, and the suspects' own actions after the attack made them look even more suspicious. Every step they took, every cleanup attempt only made them look guiltier. One of the most incriminating moments came when Sean Gathright tried to cover their tracks by driving the black Chevy Impala to a relative's home in Polk County. There, he reportedly started moving evidence into a gold 2004 Toyota 4Runner, wiping the Impala clean to remove any traces before trying to get rid of it completely. But that desperate move didn't save them. It just tightened the case. Investigators pieced everything together, and what followed would shake Jacksonville's entire rap world to its core. So what do you think really went down behind the scenes of this wild case? Was Alicia Andrews just manipulated, or was she part of something much bigger? Drop your thoughts below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into hip-hop's most shocking stories. See you in the next one.